ready, for the day that approaches is the day of the great
revolution. Are you ready to rule?
We are ready to rule.
Well, the film for me started out as the investigation of a lie, and that lie was that the American government said that they'd arrested an army planning a ground war on the United States, and what they'd actually done was arrest 7 bankrupt construction workers who'd been wound up by an FBI agent to come up with a ridiculous plan, which turned out to be riding into Chicago on horses. When that was represented as the biggest terrorist attack since 9/11, I was piqued enough to want to look further, and far from discovering this was a one-off, found out that it was actually the MO for the FBI. It's what they'd evolved since 9/11.
The first audition, he was like telling me that it was he had a friend who was working on this documentary about the Liberty City 7. And so I was like, oh, really? I was like, do you have footage? And then right in the moment, he like pulled out his computer and showed me. That's what excited me about him, and also what made me realize like that he was a great person to tell this story, because he sought after so many people in order to like make this tapestry and what you see on the screen. He asked for permission. And that's a really exciting thing when a director is collaborative.
You're gonna pitch me the next 9/11.
What about this guy, Moses Shabazz?
Classic lone wolf.
There's 4 of them, actually.
Duckwalk!
Pack of lone wolves. How'd that happen?
I've not seen in any reporting a true rendition of the effect on the people who are preyed on by the process. And as I went into the research, I knew I had to cover all aspects of it. I had to meet informants, and I had to meet people, or the families of people who've been put away in this way. And at each stage of the research, something strikes you that you know you have to take forward into the film. And early on, it became apparent that although we were telling the story of a kind of farcical injustice, based on the idea that the FBI have sort of stumbled across the fact that it's harder to find a real terrorist than it is to make up your own, the thing that really struck me was the impact on the families and the people who fall into these traps. And that had to become the central story. So it had to be told from Moses' point of view.
Moses doesn't know failure. He doesn't know how to fail. And so he sees the world how he wishes it to be for any given moment. And I think that's the tough thing for me as an actor and as a person in America, because it's like there are realities, right? Like in 2005, like my cousin was shot by the cops. Like that's a reality for me. Like that's a real thing. And so like it's very hard for me to like buy into certain moments. But I don't think I ever saw him as delusional, more as a visionary.
You being played, Mo. What if I'm playing them? Whoever it is playing me.
Basically, people see things in lots of different ways, and I definitely wanted to have a character whose worldview was some way apart from the usual, because otherwise they wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb in the first place and attract the attention of the law agencies. So I constructed a belief system which doesn't exist out of all sorts of elements that I'd encounter going around. But the whole point is about this form of injustice is that it preys on people who are on the fringe, who feel like they are not normal. Because obviously, you know, a justice system to protect the normal is not necessarily a fully functioning one. A fully functioning justice system, and by the way, the FBI are supposed to look after civil rights, not attack them, should include people whose belief systems are really different from yours, so long as they are not actually committing crimes.
Could you pay someone to inform upon themselves?
You want to inform on yourself?
Would you be interested?
He's got the threat signature of a hot dog.
Peace, brothers!
Jihad has no off switch. Next thing you know, the Statue of Liberty's wearing a burqa, and we've beheaded Bruce Springsteen.
As an actor, you know you have very little power, but the things you like sort of choose to do. And it's, I think, my way of being political. You know what I mean? My way of having a little revolution. That's why I want to be an actor. To tell stories that provoke people, that force conversations, that allow us to like re-examine the way we look at the world and ourselves, but also to like challenge like how we tell stories, because I think Chris has a very specific eye.
Let's offer this Moses Shabazz some funds.
He could set up a meeting with a rich ISIL sheikh.
Perhaps your army needs weapons? No.
We don't believe in guns. If necessary, we'll call on the dinosaurs. But at the sound of a trumpet, they will come to our aid.
The people that I met, the families of people who'd been sent to jail by this ridiculous mechanism were functioning families in which a system of values was upheld, proper behavior to your fellow human beings. They weren't sort of violent or bad people. In fact, they often live in the context of quite a lot of violence, and they're the non-violent people. And it was important, therefore, for Moses as a character in the film to be played by somebody who was not just good enough to be able to give a complex performance, but could understand where Moses came from, and also had a sort of quality of likability. And Marcia has all of those things.
I think one of the wonderful things I discovered is what it could be like to find a yes where there's a no. And I think he's always finding or looking for the sort of silver lining. Like he sees the world in a way that nobody else does. I think he has like a flawed sense of logic that is hard to get on board with, but he's an optimist.
We have to get him a fake nuke.
I'll take a better idea if you got one. How about not selling nukes to Nazis?
Uranium.
To put hair on your chest and make it fall off.
All the actors were really good at sort of reaction shots, and the way we film is that they're basically on for the whole scene. So that's a kind of easy way of explaining how you can propel things along. Somebody just does a great reaction to a thought, and it lets the audience know that it's a joke, essentially, because it's very deadpan. So you need actors who are skilled in detonating those moments.
There were some scenes in which we were doing like 2 and 3 takes, and then there were moments in which Chris would just like keep like adding in little things, little line changes, in order to like find the kernel of truth, like actual truth in a moment. Chris would constantly throw things out there. It was one of those things that was difficult at times, but very useful and effective.
You're looking to keep everything relevant that tells your tale. And there's a hierarchy system. The most important thing is the story. The details that you've come up with in your research, the shot that took you a whole day to make, the performance that killed everyone on set, all of those are as nothing if they don't serve the story. And then you have to check yourself. You just have to telescope in and out. You kind of right up there, sort of messing things around. But ideas come up in the edit too. I mean, it is not just a continuation of the script editing process, it's an invention process as well. And you have a great amount of flexibility, not just with pictures, but with sound. Once you've got the story right, you can change the meaning of it by just placing pennies on the balancing system. But it does take time, at least for me, probably because I was born with the wrong software. I mean, if I had a better operating system, yeah, I could do one of these every year.
It's just the horn they used to summon the dinosaurs.
I mean, how many decisions are there in the film? I don't know. It may represent over 1 million decisions, maybe more. And each one of those could take it off course. So there's the fear of going off course all the time. And by the time it's actually made and you're presenting it, there's one fear, which is basically people won't like it. You either get the better of it or you just style it out until you've worked out how to get the better of it.
He's unarmed!
Unarmed black man, unarmed white man. Which one's more likely to have the gun?
What excites me is that there are people who don't just look like me who are thinking about these things. Because like 20 years ago, I don't know if that was the case. And the fact that like we see this black man who has so much humanity and like vulnerability and loves his family, and that like there's so much heart there. There's so much hope there. There's so many things you don't get to see normally, and it's exciting that these stories are being told and that this story is being told. And for me, I just hope that people are able to see that. I hope people see the humanity in him and in his followers and in his family, and that they feel for him.
You think this gonna work out?
No.